Hello there, Giancarlo from Studenti Ed here, and welcome to Beyond the Talent, a brief slice of time where an alumni, such as myself, gets to know a little bit more about the talents of incredible IED alumni all around the world. Today, I'm here with Serena Bonomi, a former IED Innovation Strategy Product Master student and an actual circular economy strategy and innovation advisor. How are you today, Serena? Did I get that right?
You got it perfectly. And I'm always changing my title, so you got this one today. Let's see what's there tomorrow. Yes, I'm great today. I was just coming home back to Berlin after a long couple of days conference in Copenhagen with a lot of other sustainability, innovation folks. But maybe we'll talk about it a little bit later.
Yes. No, I have a lot of questions about a lot of stuff, but Serena, our aim with these talks is to search for insights and inspiration that young minds can use to pursue their future careers, and that's why together we're going through some key things that could be relevant for the future of IED students all around the world. But first, let me get this right, okay? Circular economy strategy innovation advisor. What's the meaning of this term, and what was the path that drove you to embrace this position as your current job title?
Oh, it's a long story, I think. One of the things that you did mention is that I have this master in IED, but I also have a bachelor in industrial design in IED. And I think a lot of things actually start from there, because I studied to be a designer. And now, as you can see, I don't have design in my title, but I actually work as a designer every single day.
You used to have a designer in your title.
I used to have a designer in my title, and then I recently dropped it because I realized it's just misleading to add yet one more buzzword to it. I already have enough of them. But yes, so I studied industrial design and did this master in strategy, innovation, and product design at IED. And then as I was starting to work for some of the larger corporations as well, I realized that, product development is not really my thing. I was feeling like I don't really want to create, the next lamp, the next chair, the next whatever type of product it is. I felt just this sense of insatisfaction in leveraging my skills to do that. I still knew I wanted to do something else, but I was very unclear on what that was. And so eventually, and then you can tell me how much details I can share now versus how much.
Share everything you want.
Share away.
It's all about you today.
Oh my God. Can I also share names of brands? Because this is something.
Share names of brands, yes. Flex them.
Okay. So after my master, I started working actually for 3M Corporation, which for many people, all I say always is the Post-it company. They're the mother brand of Post-it brand and many, many other brands actually. They're in an industry called consumables actually. And when you see my profile now working in sustainability versus when I tell you I used to work in consumables, people are like, there's this connection there, what happened? So basically, as I was working with them, I also realized this that I was mentioning before, that I don't really want to leverage my skills to develop new products. And I had the opportunity to then join BMW Automotive, so a completely different industry, completely different scale of complexity. And something that I worked on there, which then defined a lot of my career, is that during the few months that I spent there, actually, I worked on two very big strategic projects, one for the BMW Group and one for an external company, because I was part of BMW's design studio, which is called DesignWorks. So it's more like a strategy and innovation consultancy studio within the company that works both internally and externally. And the project that really shaped my career, the internal project that shaped my career, is actually a vision project that is called the Next 100-Year Vision that BMW created at the time, which they were approaching the 100-year anniversary since the founding of the brand. And so they were basically questioning, how is the automotive industry, how is transport going to look like 100 years from now? And if you think about it today, it's very disruptive to be a company thinking 100 years in the future, disruptive.
You don't even know if there's going to be cars in 100 years. Maybe
like
we're all going to walk in our little cities.
Totally. And this was a huge project with many, many people involved. And I was like the smallest drop in the biggest ocean in it. But that was for me, that was the whole ocean, the whole ocean in my career, especially at the beginning. And that's something that what I really learned is that you can actually have these minds that it's more systemic, that goes beyond today's, that starts to look, beyond the industry as we know it, and really working through design methodologies and design thinking methodology to actually apply strategic long-term vision. So that was for me one of the strongest starting point. And then that got actually married with this external project that we did with a client called VF Corporation. And I'm going to mention a little bit about it in a moment. But VF Corporation was one of BMW's clients, and they actually commissioned to BMW to work with them on identifying what makes products iconic. And now is the moment that I mentioned it. VF, many people don't know it. They're actually an American mother company, one of the largest fashion corporations globally, and they own brands like the North Face, Napapijri, Timberland, Aespac, Vans, Icebreaker, Dickies, Supreme, really a bunch of very cool brands. And as I was working, basically investigated what are the design elements that make products iconic, married together with this 100-year vision project. I think those kind of make me understood how much design can be a leverage for future envisioning, for behavioral change, for more than just the products as we know it. And so to try to get to your question.
Yes, no. This is the correct, form of the answer. This is I asked you about a path, and you're telling me a path.
I'm giving you the path.
You're giving me the path.
Yeah, totally. And then what I did the very typical thing of going from agency to client. So I went from the agency of BMW to then the client VF Corporation. And there I initially worked more on this project of elevating design, elevating iconicity, understanding what makes products iconic, developing, strategic creative visions as well for one of the brands. We did it on Napapijri, and then expanded it on Kipling, Vans, and the North Face, I believe, in that order. And that project also shaped me quite a lot, because then I had the opportunity to apply the learnings from this project by basically working in the marketing team of Napapijri for about a year. So it was literally going from long-term strategic thinking to we need to activate in events, products, campaigns now. And I think that also put me in a position to be very in close contact with customers, to understand quite a lot, what people do actually. And this is something that I also had quite a lot of perspective from my experience at 3M Corporation, because I sat in quite a few, this very type of iconic pre-pandemic user interviews where you're hiding behind a screen and there's a mirror on the other side that they don't really know you're seeing, but you're seeing them.
Okay.
So I did a lot of that in 3M, and I learned a lot about the customers, and then I had the opportunity to do a lot of that also from a marketing perspective with Napapijri. And that actually led then to my next step, which was the founding of an innovation team in Europe for VF Corporation, reporting into supply chain. And I had a manager who was a very visionary, but at the same time a very doer person. So they really opened a lot of doors and really helped, all the project we worked on to be shaped the way that they got shaped. And that's the moment that I started working on innovations in the circular economy field. And I always say that I never arrived to this point necessarily, not necessarily from an angle of I really want to work in sustainability. It was more like I want to do things that make sense, to apply the skills that I have in a way that does some sort of good. And for me, this definition of some sort of good was extremely broad and wide, until eventually I very organically stumbled upon the circular economy. And this is a field that I actually have been working in ever since. And it's a field that for the first year I was working in it, I didn't even have a name for it. So I was just saying I'm doing sustainable innovation.
Yeah.
Until the sustainability team of VF Corporation actually was like, you're working on circular economy. That's how it's called. And that was just like,
so that's when the circular word came into
that's
place.
The circular, and then I fell in love with it. So
yeah.
I did a lot of things for them on circularity. Maybe we'll touch on them later. And then during the pandemic, I felt like, I was kind of done working with brands and trying to figure out from a product and from a business model perspective what is happening. I was really curious to understand what is happening on the other side, even closer to the customer from a retailer perspective. So I then ended up working for Zalando, where I spent the past 2.5 years. And this time I was no longer reporting into supply chain, leading innovation, but I was actually working in the sustainability team. So I had a bit of a different experience there. And then eventually, a few months ago, I left the company. And now it's been almost 3 months that I'm setting up as an independent
Serena Bonomi.
An advisor, exactly. It's just a random after my own name. But it's
entrepreneur presso me stessa.
Yeah, exactly. Presso me stessa.
I mean,
but it's not going to be like that for long.
But you did have you have a lot of experience. I think you have enough experience to go presso te stessa.
Yeah, definitely. And this is something, like Giancarlo, if you would have asked me a few years ago, I would have said no, never.
No.
Me? Oh, no. I enjoy the corporation life. There's a lot of benefits from it. I also quite enjoy the politics and the speed of things because you get a lot of pressure and speed, but you also get a lot of steadiness and slow perspectives at the same time.
Yeah.
And, for me, especially coming from the consumables to automotive to then fashion, the speed of project was so different because automotive has like a 7-year development timeline and fashion is like every 6 months you're going to the next thing. So I think I had a good variety of speed of projects as well. And then, like doing innovation for fashion was a few years development timeline, was never like the next 6 months. But I was always like, I was really enjoying that. And I never thought, the insecurity, financial insecurity of doing this step was just not for me, until I felt like I was a lot more excited for side projects that I was working on. Because like on the side of my main full-time job, I was freelancing for quite a long time on like smaller consultancy, teaching, and so until I felt like I was getting more excited whenever I had this type of secondary gigs rather than my main job.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe it's time to try.
It's time to try. Yeah, I think you are doing the right thing by at least for the time being. But one thing I wanted to ask you is you took this this change in your job name around 7 years ago, right? Like
Yeah.
You started using the circular word some time ago. And did you have you were saying that it's a little bit contradictory because you come from other kinds of company, but did you always have it in you to be more climate oriented or sustainability oriented, innovation sustainability oriented?
I think the innovation part for sure was always there because this, like, I was already, a lot of my projects during my bachelor and my master were already quite innovative, I think, for like comparing to other, like in the same years. I think there was just like a little bit of a different angle that was always trying to be, and when I say innovative, it's not to discredit somebody else's job, but it was more like my angle was always like, I want to go beyond the product.
Yeah.
Like the product should be a mean for something bigger, And I think that was maybe the innovative side. And I had the amazing opportunity also that a lot of my classmates and teammates of some of the projects I worked on, both in my bachelor and in my master degree, actually, they were also having quite a similar angle. So we could really build on each other's ideas and we did a lot of very cool projects. But I never thought that I could actually make a living out of working in sustainability. I never thought there was a pathway for designers. I also can say that sustainability for me was something that, it was not like a huge personal interest. It was more something that I was always like, yes, I'm kind of interested about it. I'm reading about it. I'm trying to implement the things that make sense for me to implement. There's some things that I still am very open also, like sometimes even on my LinkedIn, I'm like, I suck whenever I travel because I really enjoy flying. It's like I really like being up in the air. I love the whole plane setup. I love the whole being at the airport. It puts me in a very productive and good mood. So I really struggle. Like I have a huge carbon emission footprint personally.
I had this conversation with a friend of mine some time ago, and the thing was, okay, I want to be sustainable, so the alternative to maybe flying will be, I don't know, going by car or going by cruise or anything or whatever. Thing is, I thought, but if I get to go, if someone like Serena gets to go there first, she can work in a quicker to make a more sustainable world. So the total emissions by the future by the people who will be inspired by you will be less than the ones that, so you have to make some to save some in the afterwards.
Do you know the trends on social media about girl math and how you try to justify your own spending by
I'm definitely doing climate math.
Love it. I was calling it Giancarlo math. Climate math is also very nice.
no, but I was thinking about it. I was trying to do some girl math for you or some climate math for you, But
I totally get it. And I think, at the end of the day, like everything, it's a trade-off. And for me as well, like, like I know I'm really bad at flying and the way that I travel is not the most sustainable. I'm trying to be a lot more aware, for example, now of hotel choices. Maybe that's where I compensate my traveling and trying to do more local food. But like I'm definitely a lot more advanced when it comes to my own personal lifestyle from a sustainability perspective in other areas, not necessarily traveling, for example. So I think at the end of the day, and this is also what I do really enjoy about working in the circular economy space is that we always tend to think about sustainability as something that it's a limitation, right? Because the narrative is always about you cannot do this, you need to reduce that, you need to do less of that. Like it's a lot of less, it's a lot of negative talk, it's a lot of don't. And for me, what I found in the circular economy is that it's pretty much the opposite. There's a lot of opportunities in there. Yes, there are some limitations, but then that's why I think designers are such a key, talents to work in this space, no matter what type of design field one can be in. Because when you're actually giving yourself some limitation and some boundaries, I feel like that's where creativity actually really thrives. It's like when you have 2 things left over in your pantry and they look really sad, you will still come up with some food to eat and it's probably going to be very nice.
Okay.
But when you have 1,000 things, you don't know what to cook, you know?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Makes actually perfect sense. Perfect sense. Going back a little bit. Let's go a little back. Going back to your IED years before everything started. How has your education at IED influenced your current approach in your job?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question, and it's actually a conversation I often have with my mom, because every once in a while she comes up with this, it's such a pity, you were such a good designer, it's such a pity you're no longer designing. And it's super interesting because, like I said before, I still feel like I'm designing every single day. My output is not just physical items or digital products, but I'm pretty much applying, design methodologies every single day. And I think my experience as yet has 1,000% shaped the type of design mindset that I have, because we worked on a lot of projects that were, even within the industrial design bachelor, we still work on a variety of products that were not necessarily only physical. And at the time, this was a few years ago. This was before
few years ago.
Couple of years ago. This was before UX design courses were a thing. So you were either doing interior design or architecture or industrial design or graphic design, motion maybe, or sound design, but there was not so much digital stuff going on yet, So I think it's been influencing pretty much since day one. And what I really enjoyed as well at IED that I still apply pretty daily, I would say, is also the methodology of working, the idea that you're almost working as a small studio within a larger organization, you're working with shared goals, you're working with a clear roadmap and a strategy in place. And I think this is something that a lot of the professors that I had, both at the bachelor and at the master, were really good at. Imposing is not the right word, teaching, but it was kind of imposing at the time. But then eventually became, at the time it was oh my God, they, put all these deadlines. It's so much stress. It's a lot of exam. It's a lot of things to deliver. But then at the end of the day, you realize how much you actually need it when you're then moving into the job market.
So that's something that they helped you a lot with.
Yeah, I would say definitely, yeah.
So what were some major changes that you noticed in your work field since you started? Because you had your fair share of experience, and
Maybe I can share one of the changes that I'm frustrated is not happening to start.
Okay, I love this angle.
I'm flipping your question.
I love this angle. I love the angle. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna add this as a question. What are some changes that you're not seeing?
That you wish you were seeing.
That you wish you were seeing. I love this. Yeah, you can answer this. Yes, I like this.
Yeah, I'll make my own questions.
It's fine.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit the reason why I currently don't have design in my title. It was there until last week. I actually just dropped it over the weekend.
Fresh LinkedIn.
Yeah, it was a fresh
change.
LinkedIn update. And the thing is that every time I say I'm a designer, all I'm being asked is oh, did you make this pretty sweater you're wearing? Did you make this jacket? Working in the fashion industry, they automatically think I'm creating garments, And I'm there's so many different methodologies within design that design is more a bigger umbrella that defines more the mindset you have and the way that you're solving problem. Design is about problem solving at the end of the day. And the solution is not necessarily a pretty garment, a pretty website, a pretty, clothes, whatever it is. And I'm really on a personal battle to make people understand that design is beyond, the aesthetic, beautiful creativity. There's a lot of rationality, there's a lot of data, there's a lot of people understanding, behavioral analysis. And very often I feel in the type of work that I do, that this is really discredited out of design. It's not associated with design. And when I say design, everybody thinks, oh, you're so creative.
You're creating,
you're such an artist. And I'm I feel I'm a very rational person, actually. I'm maybe less on the creative side. And I think that's why I love design. It's because it bridges those creativity and those rationality all together. So this is a change that I would like to see.
You want to see the design term be more broad.
I'm trying
for
to be an
people.
ambassador for that. Every time
is
I'm like,
a-
I'm not putting it in my title, but then I'm explaining people that I'm a designer and this is what I do.
That is actually, that's a very, very interesting angle. I'm so glad that you flipped my question. So,
Thank you.
so I have a hot take, and then I'm gonna move on to another interesting topic. The hot take is, okay, you are doing something. You're also a designer. You're a lot of stuff, but the thing is, we're always gonna ask this in Beyond the Talent. Are you Team Mac, or are you Team PC?
Oh my God, Mac my whole life.
You're Mac your whole life.
I can't let it go. Yeah, I actually had a PC, I think, for maybe 2 months when I was working for BMW.
Okay.
I think eventually my manager gave up on it because he realized that I was just so miserable. I really couldn't work with it. And then eventually I was just like, I really need, Mac. It's been Mac for me.
Okay, so we know that that's the choice. Yeah, in my opinion, it's Mac for the ecosystem. Just everything just works.
Yeah.
But sometimes if you really want to get your hands dirty, and in terms of being more customizable, or it's more time proof, if you can go PC. If you want to do very heavy work, you shouldn't get a PC. But
But I don't do that. I do a lot of
me
work,
neither. So
the brain is here. The computer is
so
a tool.
right now we are in a studio that is being run by a PC because it needs a powerful graphics card. But what we're doing right now, it's obviously on a Mac. So
for me, it's also very easier to travel with the Mac.
Oh yeah,
it's
it
a
is.
lot more light
just
and
works.
easy, and
it just works so well.
Yeah.
So well.
I'm a fan.
So I'm learning a lot throughout this interview about the word circular, about the fact that you can be a lot of stuff, even being a designer. Because I knew that, but I don't know to what extent a company expects a design, what a company expects a designer to be. But my question to you, I think this is something that you are one of the best ones to answer me. What does it take to make real circular innovation, in your opinion?
Oh, that's an interesting one. But maybe the question I would ask first is, do we know what the circular economy is? Should I maybe give a quick definition of that?
Let's give a quick definition of circular economy.
All talk about the same thing.
Is there something as a linear economy as well?
Definitely. And I think that's actually the starting point to define what circularity is. And it's, if you know the basic of, what is it called? Geometry. Mm-hmm. Linear is a line, circular is a circle. So circular doesn't have an end, ideally. It's an infinite cycle. Right now we're working and operating in a linear economy, which means that we take resources, we make products with it, we use those products, and then we dump them.
More than ever.
More than ever. Oh my God, we're such a consumeristic society, especially, And I think that we have a very wrong, number one, the vocabulary that we're using to define the way we operate products is wrong, because when you say throwing away doesn't exist on the planet. There's nothing like away. Away is always somewhere else. It's just out of your sight. Therefore, you feel like it's not existing anymore. But things don't disappear. Things don't dissolve. Apart from socks in laundry.
Okay.
But those disappear for real. But that's a case study for another time. But normally things don't disappear, they just end up somewhere else. And just because you don't see them, it doesn't mean that they're not creating an impact somewhere else. And whenever we operate in the linear economy, we actually we're just dumping stuff somewhere else on the planet. And there's horrible pictures, especially when it comes to the fashion industry, where you see the Atacama Desert being filled with garments. You see it from space. It's mental. It's the same in a lot of countries in Africa, and they've become the dumping ground of our Western society. On the other side, what the circular economy is the idea of a circle, the idea of a closed loop. So the idea that these take and these throw away actually do not really exist, that the take actually is part of a cycle that at the end of a product's lifetime, you actually feed it back into nutrient, it's said, for another cycle. And I think this idea of nutrients is very powerful, and I always describe it just by talking about nature, because we have a perfect example of circular economy. Nature is a circular economy system, When you think about nature, and as humans, we never want to talk about the end, we never talk about death, it's such a taboo. But in nature, death is the beginning of another cycle. So our bodies decompose and they become feed for another cycle. And there's even like a very nice quote that I always use that says that a falling leaf actually feeds the forest. When a leaf falls from the tree, it becomes nutrient, you know? And
that's a perfect example of circularity.
It's such a powerful example. And what we really need to do is actually learn from nature again. And I think there's a lot of then like sub movements, you know, of like biomimicry and all this type of things. There's a lot of sub movements that are trying to, you know, like use nature as an example. Circularity is just another word for that. There's circularity, there's donut economy, there's cradle to cradle. They're all like synonyms of the same idea. And the same idea is that we live within a system where waste doesn't exist. And waste is a design flaw, actually. If there's a waste, it means there's a mistake somewhere. Secondary, you know, like we use products as much as we can in their highest value, and the conception of value also is very different in a circular economy because it's less about economic value. It's also about materials value. It's about emotional value. It's about, you know, the intrinsic value of an item to serve a purpose. And then thirdly is about regenerating the planet as well, which of course there's then a lot of, you know, like regenerative talk as well if you're anyhow a little bit in the sustainability bubble world. So back to your question, what was it? I think
the question is what does it take to make a real circular innovation, in your opinion?
Yeah, the thing with circularity is that it doesn't work if it's only done in one spot, you know? If we're only developing products designed for circularity, so for example, a jacket designed for circularity, but it actually does not circulate in a circular system, it's still a linear product at the end of the day. So
if people don't use it the way the company or the mind behind the product wants you to use it, it's going to become linear.
Yeah, exactly. For example, so if I buy a product that is designed for circularity, but I use it 2 times, I wear it twice, you know, let's think about fashion, I wear it twice and then I throw it away in my kitchen bin, then it doesn't become a circular product. It still stays into the linear system. While if I use it a lot, I repair it whenever it's broken, I take care of it through the way that I wash it, I take care of it through the way that I, you know, like maintain it for its long time. Whenever I don't want it anymore, I pass it on to somebody else, which can be, you know, like handing it down to somebody else or selling it on the second market or, you know, like swapping it with a friend, whatever it is. I allow this product to have other lives with other people. And then eventually only when it's really, really torn down, the company comes back and takes it and, you know, like transforms it into something else. And then eventually when this something else, which, you know, could be, I don't know, like insulation or whatever type of material, when that is eventually exhausted, then it's recycled into another yarn, you know, into another chip that can be used again to create a new product, then that's an example of a linear economy. So you want to have these multiple cycles before it even eventually goes to recycling. And I think this is something that very often I hear, that circularity equals recycling. Actually, there's a lot more R's. There's like multiple R's before you get to recycling, which are about, you know, repairing, reusing, and like many other cycles. A lot of R's. I don't even think I know all of them in order. I always need to see the visuals from them. But there's a lot of R's before you even recycle. So what it takes to do a proper good innovation for the circular economy, I think, is having this capability of looking at the short and at the long, at the small and at the big at the same time, you know? And I think this is a little bit what this other buzzword that I removed from my title as well a few days ago, which is about being systemic, is. So it's about thinking about systems. It's not about products. It's not about services. It's about the system in which we operate. You know, the economic system is an example. The what is it called? The biological system is another example. So it's
you removed this from your title. You said system.
I dropped it. It's
you
difficult.
Dropped it.
Because very often when I say systemic design, people think design systems, which is not systemic design. It's very different. Design systems is more like the operation, like the operational way of the company to work. You know, the system is like their logo, their, you know, culture. Those are the systems in a company. Systemic, it's very different. So people were getting it confused. I was like, it's not the right time. It's not the right maturity.
I love how you're optimizing your job every time. I like it.
Which is a pain, because then at the same time, I'm like, when people are like, what is your job title? I'm like, let me see what I have on this week.
Yeah, I love that so much. let's spin the wheel of synonyms.
Yeah, exactly.
No, actually,
this is an advantage of being freelancer, because
you can put whatever you want. But to be fair, it is, if someone follows you, you know, I think that when someone lands on your LinkedIn, on your profiles, they want to find out what you mean by that, and you give people enough reason to like enough information to know what you're doing. So I think at one point you'll be like, okay, I like this makes sense at one point.
Hopefully. I have this huge mission of, like upskilling people in business and people in sustainability to understand that design is beyond creativity and aesthetic. And at the same time, I have this huge mission of taking creatives and designers and make them understand you can have an impact. You can have
I'm one of them. I'm one of the ones
you're
that
having
are...
a very negative impact right now because industrial designers are like they're probably one of the most dangerous jobs, from an impact perspective to do.
No, but I'm not an industrial designer though.
No, but just saying,
In
like
general,
I come from
in
an
general.
industrial design background, so I'm like, if you can have a negative impact, the good news is that it means you can also reverse it to be positive. So if
Okay.
you're doing something that is negatively impacting, it means you have the opportunity to flip it around.
Okay, that's very interesting. Very interesting.
There's
You know,
always the other side.
So I have a more personal question, okay?
Go ahead.
If you were to meet your past self, and by your past self, I specifically mean more the Serena from the master degrees time.
Yeah.
What's one advice that you would like that Serena to know, and one thing that you would purposely omit to allow that Serena to grow as a resourceful person that you are today?
Oh, this is a really good question.
I put some love into this one.
Love it, yeah. I think one of the things I was always very scared of during my master was to become an expert in something, which is now absolutely ridiculous because I'm a super expert on something that it's a niche of a niche, So I would tell myself, like, don't be scared of expertise because you can always get out of expertise through the design lens, like through the design methodology, through design thinking. That's always a way to get out of expertise and bridge different industries or bridge different products or way of working. So I would say for me, at least the way that this panned out in my career, design has become kind of like a wild card, like a jolly, like a wild card I can play that allows me to be very flexible, but then my area of expertise is circularity, but then I can still go back and produce and design products that are designed for the linear system. I still know how to do that. So I can still get out of my expertise through design if I wanted to. The topic is that it's not what I want to do. So of course,
but you have a plan B and a plan C and a plan D.
Yeah, exactly. So I can always, reinvent myself and adapt. And I think design is always the one methodology that allows me to do that, to be always, on top of the zeitgeist, always on top of trends, if that's even a word that I can use, because I don't really like the word trends. It's more like waves of cultural changes, I would say, rather than trends. So that's definitely an advice I would give myself, is like, don't be scared of feeling like you're becoming an expert in something. But at the same time, this fear of being an expert, I think, is what brought me to where I am today, because it actually put me in a position to experiment a lot. So I've done also a lot of competitions to start in my early days of my career, because I was like, I don't know if I want to do packaging, I don't know if I want to do automotive, I don't know if I want to do this, I don't know if I want to do that. And I think that fear of expertise actually is what put me in a position to do a lot of competitions and to learn and experiment a lot with random industries. I even designed like a water, like a VC flushing plug at a certain point, like the flushing system for a toilet. I even went down that route because I was like, maybe interior design, and maybe that's a way to experiment with it, through a different angle. So I think that's something that my fear of expertise actually brought me in the expertise that I'm in today. But I think the fear of it enabled me to experiment so much that I could actually then define what I wanted to be an expert on. So that's something that I would tell myself, don't stress out too much, just kind of go with the flow. And something that, what was the second part of the question? Something that
You actually answered it. The second part is, what is one thing that you would omit to make yourself the person you are today? Because you're saying right now that the advice you will give yourself is the same thing that you would omit.
Yeah.
Because you say, hey, don't have fear, but at the same time, you know what? A little fear is fine.
Yeah, but there's another thing that I do want to add. I'm sorry, maybe you have a lot of questions prepared. And
No. I have no. We have all. I don't know how much time you have. I have all the time in the world. So
nice. Another thing that I wish I could go back and tell myself is that when I went from the industrial design to strategy, product, and innovation in the master, and then I went into the consumables, doing more customer insight and strategic work, and then I went into automotive. I felt like and then fashion, and then marketing. I felt like every experience was so disconnected and it didn't make sense, and I was feeling like I don't even know how to explain my own career. It just doesn't make any sense. And as I was going through these different experiences, it all felt very random, for lack of better words of it, like disconnected. There was no kind of like red thread that made sense in my career. And actually, I've done a very good job with an amazing coach during the pandemic to actually go back and kind of see what the red thread was. And what I realized through that program was that actually the red thread of my career, all it was the values and my search for a bigger purpose and for better intention. And I think it's this intentionality and this purpose-led type of approach that actually really brought me through this experimentation and eventually brought me to the expertise that I'm in today. Oh, can you see me? Yes, I think
Yes, I can.
Camera froze for a moment. And I think this is something that I was stressing out quite a lot in the beginning. I would say at least in the first 5 years of my career. And now that I'm like almost 3 times above those 5 years, I'm like, it's actually really good. You don't have to have it all figured out to start with, because your gut will tell you when you're not in the right space. You will understand that you are frustrated, you're demotivated, and I think that's always signs for you to move on and do something else. And it's okay to experiment to start with, because then eventually things will make sense, because at the end of the day, your career is driven by your own personal values, and those will be the red thread that will guide your career eventually. But I think you need a little bit of experience to look back at it and make sense of it. So it's fine if you do things that don't make sense.
You did such a good explanation and such a broad answer that you anticipated my next question.
Which was
what advice would you give to YES students to aspire follow a growth like yours? And everything you just said just works perfectly. I think. Go back and YES students, I will give this advice, and then everything else you say it afterwards.
Yeah. I do a lot of mentoring and a lot of teaching as well, so I'm always in contact with students, and this is always what I tell them. So maybe that's why I anticipate.
It's very evident. It's very evident. But do you do it all around the world, or in just some parts of some schools in Italy from YED?
So I've been teaching at the IED Master for a few years. Actually, I was first teaching communication and storytelling for them, and then 2, maybe 3 years ago, I think. Not sure, like after the pandemic, I think a couple of years ago, I switched over to actually teaching circular economy innovation, which is super nice. So I'm really having a lot of fun there. So I was teaching also this year. And then I'm also now teaching to a university here in Germany where I'm currently based. So it's 2 for now.
Okay. Yeah. In German or in English?
No. Oh my God, no. And also in YED, I teach in English because I couldn't do it in another language.
It's your preferred language. Serena, thank you so much for your time, and it was very, very insightful. I'm not joking, and I really hope a lot of people will see this and they will be very inspired to have a mindset like yours and try to pursue a career like yours. I mean, you've done a lot of stuff, so it's going to take a while.
Experiment, try things out.
Experiment. But
it's like it's like a very naive trust the universe.
Trust the universe,
work out
and the universe will reward you.
Intention in it.
Trust the universe, and the universe will reward you with more work.
Exactly.
And more ask the universe questions, and the universe will give you more questions.
More questions, exactly.
And thank you so much, Serena.
Thank you, Giancarlo.